Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look into the world of environmental management systems. Specifically, we're zooming in on the really crucial roles of auditors within ISO 14001.215. Our mission for you today? Well, it's to unpack the distinct responsibilities, qualifications, and yeah, even the training paths for two key players, the internal auditor and lead auditor. It's really about understanding who does what and why their distinct roles are so important for environmental compliance and continuous improvement.
Absolutely. And these aren't just job titles, right? What's really foundational here is how these specialized positions with their kind of unique scopes, they really underpin an organization's entire environmental performance. And it's credibility, too. They're like different essential gears in the pretty complex machinery of an effective EMS.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this maybe with a high-level overview first. Because you might hear auditor and just think it's, one single role. But the source material makes it clear right away there are pretty significant differences. What instantly stands out is how the very scope of their work sets them apart right from the start.
Exactly. Yeah, the fundamental difference really boils down to their reach and who they report to. So an internal auditor, they conduct audits within their own organization, primarily, to check internal conformance against the ISO 14001 standard. They're basically the organization's own self-check mechanism.
Okay, the internal check.
Right. Whereas a lead auditor, conversely, leads full EMS audit teams. And these teams, well, they can be internal, but very often they're external teams, maybe working for certification bodies. And this means, an internal auditor usually reports up to an EMS manager or maybe a quality manager, a lead auditor. They're reporting to top management, or if it's a third-party audit, directly to a certification body. So that difference in reporting, it really highlights their distinct levels of oversight and authority.
That makes perfect sense. And, to really get the distinction, let's zoom in on the internal auditor first. What are their sort of day-to-day responsibilities, and what qualifications do you actually need to step into that role inside a company to be that self-check you mentioned?
Yeah. Okay. So for an internal auditor, their responsibilities really revolve around planning and conducting those key internal EMS audits. This means evaluating the organization's environmental performance, looking at how environmental aspects are managed.
And aspects are like how the company impacts the environment, right? Energy use, waste.
Exactly. Things like energy consumption, waste generation, water usage, emissions, how their activities interact with the environment. They also need to ensure legal compliance, often by checking things like legal registers. A big part is identifying nonconformities where things aren't meeting the standard, and also opportunities for improvement. Then they submit clear audit reports and, crucially, follow up on any corrective actions needed. Their main goal: ensure conformity to ISO 14001 within specific departments or processes.
Okay. And qualification.
Qualifications-wise, you need a solid understanding of ISO 14001.2015 itself. You'll need to have completed at least a 2-day internal auditor training course, plus that understanding of environmental aspects and the relevant legal requirements, the registers, and then, good observation skills, documentation, communication, those are critical too. They'll regularly use tools like an internal audit checklist to guide the audit, nonconformity reports or NCRs to document any issues found.
You mentioned identifying nonconformities. Could you maybe give us a quick common example, something an internal auditor might find that seems small but is actually important?
Oh, sure. A great example, and it happens a lot, might be something like finding unlabeled waste bins in a production area. Seems minor, right? Or maybe finding a slight deviation from a documented procedure for storing chemicals. Individually, maybe they seem small, but the internal auditor's job is to spot these, because if they're left unchecked, well, they could potentially lead to larger environmental incidents or, compliance breaches later on. They're kind of the early warning system.
That's a great illustration. Really shows their value. Okay, so then the lead auditor role sounds like a pretty significant leap in responsibility. They aren't just spotting issues. They're, like you said, orchestrating the whole audit process. How do those expanded duties really differentiate their impact?
Oh, absolutely. It's a major step up in scope. The lead auditor is, managing the whole symphony, as you put it, their responsibilities, leading the entire EMS audit team, managing the audit process from end to end. That means planning the audit scope, the schedule, figuring out the resources needed for a really comprehensive review. They have to ensure compliance not just with ISO 14001, but also with all the relevant legal requirements and the organization's own policies. A key part of their role is evaluating the overall effectiveness of the entire environmental management system. Is it actually working? They communicate findings up to top management, issue formal audit reports, and importantly for third-party audits, they handle all the critical client communications. Plus, they often guide and mentor the internal auditors.
Wow, okay, so what about their qualifications then? That must be a step up too.
Definitely. They typically need formal lead auditor training from a recognized body like IRCA, the International Register of Certificated Auditors, or maybe CQI, the Chartered Quality Institute. These are well-respected certifications. They need strong, in-depth knowledge of ISO 14001 and EMS principles. And significant audit experience is usually required. IRCA, for example, has minimum audit numbers for registration. They must be highly competent in things like audit planning, team management reporting, and, crucially, risk-based thinking. That means systematically evaluating potential environmental risks and opportunities.
And specific competencies, beyond the knowledge.
Yeah, key competencies include strong leadership and communication skills they have to lead a team and communicate findings effectively, sometimes under pressure. Absolute objectivity and impartiality are non-negotiable. Robust decision-making and skills in root cause analysis, getting to the bottom of why nonconformities occurred, and usually a broad technical understanding of EMS across different industries. Oh, and they also need to be very familiar with ISO 19011.20018. Those are the international guidelines for auditing management systems in general.
Right, ISO 19011. Given that really broad responsibility, what's maybe a common challenge that a lead auditor faces that perhaps an internal auditor wouldn't typically encounter?
A significant challenge, especially I'd say in third-party audits, is navigating that inherent tension. The tension between ensuring strict compliance on one hand and building a sort of collaborative relationship with the organization being audited, the auditee, on the other. They have to be impartial, firm on findings, but also help the organization understand and accept those findings, especially when dealing with top management or when findings could, impact their certification status. An internal auditor usually works within their own team structure, so that kind of external pressure and the need for that high level of diplomatic objectivity is often less intense.
That makes sense. It's clear these roles demand quite different levels of preparation then. So what do those training paths actually look like if someone listening is thinking about getting involved or maybe advancing their career in this field? The source material seemed pretty clear on the recommended courses.
It is, yeah. The training paths are quite distinct. They really reflect the different responsibilities. For the internal auditor, it's typically a focused two-day course. That training covers how to plan an internal audit, how to execute it, reporting, follow-up actions. Sample topics would include an overview of EMS and ISO 14001, understanding risk-based thinking, identifying environmental aspects, practical interviewing techniques, how to collect good audit evidence. It's very much focused on equipping someone to conduct those effective internal checks within their own company's scope.
Okay, 2 days for internal. And the lead auditor.
Right, the lead auditor course, that's a different beast altogether. It's much more intensive, usually 5 days or 40 hours, and it's a certified training program. These courses are highly interactive, lots of workshops, case studies, and they always culminate in a final exam. Here, the topics go much deeper. You cover the full role and responsibilities of a lead auditor, interpreting ISO 14001 in really significant depth, planning a complete audit program, leading and motivating an audit team, how to handle those crucial opening and closing meetings with management, writing comprehensive audit reports, dealing effectively with nonconformities when you find them. And often, they include real-life audit simulations that mimic what happens in actual certification scenarios.
Sounds intense.
It is. And while it's not always mandatory for everyone involved in auditing, those ISO 19011 guidelines we mentioned, they're highly recommended as a best practice guide for auditing any management system, not just environmental. So ultimately, internal auditors are aiming for an internal auditor certificate. Lead auditors, they're pursuing the more rigorous ISO 13001.2015 light auditor certificate, often one that's IRCA or CQI certified, which carries, significant weight in the industry.
It really sounds like a journey from, say, tactical oversight to more strategic command. How do these certifications, maybe beyond just ticking a box on a CV, how do they truly empower these auditors and, I guess, the organizations they serve?
Well, they provide a standardized, recognized level of competency and credibility. That's huge. For the individual auditor, it's about validating their expertise, proving they have the skills, and it definitely opens up career paths. For the organizations, it means they can trust that their auditors, whether they're internal or external ones coming in, possess the necessary skills and understanding. Trust them to effectively assess their EMS, identify real areas for improvement, and ensure that their environmental claims are robust and, frankly, defensible. It builds confidence in the whole system.
Right. So for you, the listener, really understanding these roles means recognizing these different levels of oversight and expertise. They're both involved in maintaining an effective environmental management system. It's not just, one person doing everything. It's more like a tiered system of checks and balances that builds robustness from the ground up all the way to that external validation. So just to bring it all together one last time, remember, internal auditors act as your organization's internal health check. They ensure daily compliance, effective management right there at the operational level. Lead auditors, on the other hand, they provide that broader, often external oversight. They lead the comprehensive audit teams and are frequently the ones facilitating external certification, giving that crucial third-party validation. Two very distinct roles, but really each is indispensable for the integrity of an EMS.
And maybe a final thought to consider. Think about how these distinct auditor roles, with their very specific training and responsibilities, are critical. Not just for baseline compliance ticking the boxes, but for actually driving continuous, proactive environmental improvement within organizations. So what might be the long-term impact, maybe on global environmental standards, maybe even on the planet itself, if these roles weren't so clearly defined, rigorously trained, and consistently applied? Something to think about.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring.